Your conference is being recorded.
Great. So welcome to everyone again for the, and I'm sorry, when it converted over, my title slide converted poorly, but we're going to be talking about some of the new tools in the beta of Crescendo that are available. They keep adding new tools. They keep refining these tools. I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have already had your webinar on how to find these in the system with Amy. If you haven't yet, please do reach out to me or to Amy Maglione to book that. So what we're going to look at today is what are some of the highlighted tools that we really see a lot of value in? Where can you use them? What's the key information in these, and how can we apply it again in the employee life cycle? Because the whole thing is to increase employee happiness, right? Happy employees are productive employees. So not only do we want to work with people that are happy, we want to work with people that want to do work that are putting their best work forward. And the more tools that PI is putting out, the easier it is to get to the source of why people do what they do and how best to work with them. So we're going to be looking at this from almost the entire employee life cycle. The one part today, a little bit from the recruitment side, but definitely in the hiring and recruitment part, engaging and retaining, learning and development, performance management, and even succession planning. These are all key places that you can use the information in the predictive index to know more about your employees and how best to serve them in the entire cycle. So where we start is in the beginning, right? Hiring new people is not just nerve-wracking for the candidate. It's likely pretty nerve-wracking for you as well. There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot going on, a lot riding on getting the right person in there. We all know that turnover costs the company in real dollars a lot. It also costs the company in time, in morale, in impact to other employees. So we want to make sure that we're getting the best candidate for the job. So one of the new tools that we have is the candidate comparison. And while this isn't an actual report, this is simply a screenshot here, I thought it was important to mention and start with this. So when you've created your job assessment now in the new system, if you haven't been playing around in there, just remember that they're target ranges rather than a specific dot. So you see in my example here, actually all 4 drives are really pretty well matched with this. 2 are spot on, the C and the D. So they're right in those ranges. But the A and the B, we would still consider to be a match, right? Because they're pretty darn close. So with this, you can see your behavioral target. You can click on the actual candidate, and that's what will put that pattern up there. So the ABCD is the candidate pattern. The orange boxes are the job. Then to the right, you've set your cognitive target. Now you see their score, so you can see visually how far off in either direction they are from your target. And then the lower portion is the candidate's information. Now, one thing that is still, and I want to enforce this, the numerical match numbers there. So you'll see an overall, a behavioral match, and a cognitive match. The behavioral match and therefore the overall match are still being worked on. So those algorithms aren't perfect yet. They're pretty great when it comes to color. So this match is a green. If we had more candidates in here, you may see a yellow and a red as well. The colors, just like stoplights, are signifying high, mid, and low fit. So you still have to use some of your PI knowledge. It can't just be like, oh, green, that's it, they're great. Really continue to work with the data, but that at least gives you a nice high overview of which bucket they may fall into. And as always, rely on the client success team, your consultant, all of us here, if you're wondering just how great of a match they are and where else could you dig in. You can always call us to have those conversations. So the other part of this is that you'll see under that favorite there's a little heart or a circle with a line through it. You can favorite people or pass on them, and you can sort by that. So you can actually stack rank your candidates now as well to say, I know they're only, a mid-fit, but they've got great experience. We're going to bump them up the list, and I want her at the top of my list when I go in to see it. We can show you how to do that in the system another time. So great start with the candidate comparison. And then next up, okay, we've decided this is a good fit. We're going to bring this person in for an interview. So we're going to run the all-new and improved interview guide. So if you've been using the interview guide in the classic, it's a good starting place, but it isn't as robust as the new one. There were some decent questions on there. It gave you a nice place to start, kind of showed you where they matched, where they didn't. The new one is far better and has much better questions. So if you haven't been using it or you use the old one and kind of decided not to, please give the new one a chance. It really is a whole lot more robust. This here is a screenshot of the actual report. So this is the top of the report. So you see it kind of gives you a guide to using it. You don't have to be trained in PI to use these anymore. You can give these right to your managers that have no experience in PI, and it's really impactful. It gives you, again, that picture of a visual of where they fit. So even if you don't know what the A, B, C, and D mean, you can see just how close they are and how well aligned they are. The next box down, they give you a snippet of who Laurie is according to her reference profile. So there are 17 reference profiles, and you're going to see a lot of that in here. It's going to be a recurrent theme. So this just gives whoever is conducting the interview a high-level idea of, as a reminder, right, so this is someone who is skillful and detailed with her work, precise, and wants to do the right thing, wants to avoid conflict. Okay, great. Then it continues on to give you some great questions. So the questions at the top here are where it's misaligned, and I wasn't able to fit on. You'll see the little green check mark here. Anything below the green check mark is where they are aligned, but hey, let's dig in a little bit deeper to see what that is. And let's confirm that these behaviors are really there. And the ones under the red triangle would be where it's slightly out of alignment. Even on this one, though, she's still pretty aligned, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper where it's not right on. And there's spaces for you to actually write in your answers. And again, you can edit this one as well, just as you could in Classic. So some better information, the better visual, better reminder, just an all-around better tool, improved tool. So those are the two highlights for during the hiring process. Now, you've hired them. Perfect. Laurie was a great fit for that job. She interviewed well. The team liked her. She's a cultural fit. She had all the right experience. Perfect. We're going to bring her on. Now, me as Laurie's manager, I really kind of need to know, how do I work with Laurie? So one of my most favorite new tools here is the relationship guide. So we put, and it can only compare 2 people at a time. You put 2 names in, and it's going to spit out exactly how these people are going to get along, what their strengths are, what some cautions are, and some tips on how to work with the 2 of them. So this can work both if you're the manager, you've got a new person, you want to see how you're going to work with them. You, if you're in HR, you can create this for the manager to give to them to say, here's how you and your new person are going to work together. You can do this for everyone on your team. If you're managing a group and you've got 2 people that maybe are having a hard time getting along and you just can't figure out how to help them, you could look at this and say, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that. Of course. Larissa's only going to focus on getting the information she needs, not on the detail. Where Laurie might be overwhelmed by Larissa's pace. Larissa's moving really, really fast, and Laurie is more steady, even, and controlled in the way that she moves. So it's a good way to begin to coach and manage 2 people in how they work together. And if you're a little bit more well-versed, it does give you the patterns. So you see the little patterns up top there. On the actual report, they would be at the bottom, but still, you see they're built almost opposite, almost identically opposite there. And then giving them some tips on how, Lori could frame requests so that Larissa sees a personal benefit, right? That's a really specific request or suggestion. So these aren't just kind of high level. They're actually specific and measurable things that two people can do for each other. So lots of different applications. You could also use this in the hiring process to know how a manager or two people on a team are going to work with each other. The next one-on-one tool is somewhat similar. So this is the management strategy guide. And if any of you ever worked with the manager scorecard, this is the newer version of that. You no longer have to go through and do the checkboxes to figure out what their factor combinations are. The system has already done it. So what we're looking at here is a sort of guideline or map on how best to work with Laurie. Now, when we're talking management, usually we think of from top down, right? And a lot of these are that. But this is still a really valuable tool, peer-to-peer, or from a person up. So I actually run these on my boss to make sure I'm doing what he needs. So we manage relationships all the time, but it's really imperative for a manager to have this on their people to make sure that they're really giving them what they need. Because if you remember, Laurie and Larissa are built opposite. Larissa, and we'll go back that slide, may think, oh gosh, I really love autonomy. I love to move fast. I love figuring things out on my own. When Laurie comes in, I'm not going to hover over her. I'm not going to over detail her. I'm just going to let her go. And if she's got questions, I'm sure she'll come to me. This is the problem with managing by the golden rule. Because while that's what Larissa likes, Laurie is the opposite. She wants very clear, specific, detailed instructions, measurable results, a right and a wrong, and ample time to do it. And doesn't want that freedom and autonomy. I'd really prefer that you make the decision, tell me where we're headed, and let me execute perfectly on it. So that's where this will come in handy because that will lay that out for you. So when I look at this as a manager to say, provide stability, familiarity, predictability in their job assignments. Gosh, me as the manager, that would not be something I ever would have thought of. I absolutely will put the effort forth for that and make sure that they're getting it. In addition to this, there is accountability. There's another page that gives you an action plan and sets you up for accountability. That's important as well. So the two individualized one-on-one is where these would be used are the relationship guide and the management strategy guide. So moving along here into teamwork, right? Teamwork makes the dream work. A lot of the times, people work very differently independently than they do on a team. So understanding what impacts people's behaviors on a team is really important. So when we're looking at teams, the three biggest impacts are communication. We all have different needs when it comes to giving and receiving information. So communication, not just how we talk, but also how we listen, right? And then in decision making, each person has a different approach to risk, and that's going to have an impact on how we make decisions. So in our examples here, Laurie and Larissa, very comfortable with risk, makes fast decisions, doesn't think too much about it. Laurie, very risk averse, wants to mitigate everything, looks at all of the data first, likely goes to an authority to ensure that the decision is right. Two very different ways of approaching decision making. And then finally, taking action. So some people are that quick to jump in. I don't really care if it's right. We just got to start doing something. Done is better than perfect. Let's just go and move. Versus, let's take a moment. Let's breathe. Let's look at this. Let's put a process around it. How are we going to approach this? Let's put everyone in the right place. So again, two very different ways of approaching taking action. In our scenario here, the manager, Larissa, is that jump right in, let's go, figure it out as we get there. Where her new employee, Laurie, is more responsive. Let's take a step. Let's put a process around it. Let's figure out everything. Let's get the information. So having that information about your team members is going to be helpful when divvying up the work, as well as understanding why they're doing what they're doing. So what helps us with this in the new system, and this is hands down the best team tool in the system. The group analytics is great, and if you use the group analytics, this is essentially group analytics broken down in a more narrative form. So I only have one highlighted here, but when you run this, you put your entire team in, and you'll see our two little LHs there, one up in enterprising and one down in supporting. So the first tab, if you look at the top, is overall. This is how the entire team is going to approach their work as a team. When you click on each of the tabs, the communication, taking action, and decision making, those dots will shift and move into different quadrants. When you click on the quadrant, you get what's on the right there. So many of the people on our team are enterprising when it comes to their work style. It gives a slight overview of that, what some of the strengths are in there, but also what some of the cautions are, and some tips when it comes to that team. So this group, these four, are ambitious and goal-oriented, but they can be pretty impatient when it comes to seeing results. They really want to see this happen yesterday. So what can we do? We need to provide this team with opportunities to tackle challenges, and that couldn't be more true for our team. And then when you'd click on some of the other ones, the supporting, it would give you an idea of who those four are. And then thought-provoking questions at the bottom. So if you're using this in a team session, it's more high-level questions of, considering why did we get here? What are we doing? What information are we looking to get out of this? What's working? Where maybe not working? Are we great with taking action and decision-making, but our communication really isn't so great right now? So focusing in on the communication tab. Are we a pretty good team, but we could actually take it to the next level? Wow. You know what? I was just being polite because I thought my team members needed this. I've realized they're just as ambitious and goal-oriented as I am, and they're completely comfortable with all of us driving really fast and going for it. We don't have to be as polite with each other when we're talking ideas anymore. I never knew that. My last job wasn't like that at all. Right? So this uncovers, kind of takes the cloud off of things that we assume, especially when it comes to working with other people. So I highly recommend you guys go in, play around in here. It's a lot of fun to just put in different combinations of people, see how people are working. And it's a really important tool for managers especially to have about their team, because understanding, gosh, I'm enterprising, but 2/3 of my team are not. And I definitely notice myself aligning with those other three a lot, and I'm not really giving as much to the other people when it comes to how we make decisions. All right. So we all know that happy, productive, engaged employees are just better employees, right? 44% of employees who had a positive relationship with their boss have lower stress levels. Lower stress levels lead to fewer sick days. It leads to more time in the office. It leads to more productive work. People that feel connected to their company, to what their company's up to. And I know this is things about doing in the world, but one other important thing is when companies feel, or when employees feel as though their company is investing in them, investing in their development, in their well-being, and in their happiness, they're going to connect more to that company, and their happiness will rise with that. Predictive Index tools do that. People feel heard. They feel seen, they feel understood, and they feel invested in when you take the time to truly understand the people you're working with, your candidates, your team members, and you give the time and space for that. It really only has a long-term positive impact on the productivity of the company. So a couple other final tools here. The PI reference profiles. And if you were trained at any point in that 2-day training that we do, the full training, we used to talk about reference patterns a lot, or reference profiles. We have added one, or we've added 2 actually, so we're now up to 17. The list of them are here. They're broken down into different categories. So the top 5 there are kind of our analyzer, our analytical group. The next grouping, the next 5 are our social group. Then we've got the stabilizers and the persistence. So while not identical always, it really gives you a very good overview of who people are based on their reference profile. And throughout the system, these reference profiles are noted. On your first page, on your dashboard, there's actually one of the tiles on your dashboard gives you the drop down to be able to go in and get a PDF printout or a PDF of each of the characteristics of all of the reference profiles. So our new candidate or our new hire here, Laurie, is a guardian. So this is a really handy thing to have in her kind of onboarding pack, not necessarily to her, but to whoever is onboarding her, whether it's her manager or sometimes a teammate might be doing the bulk of the onboarding. This can be really helpful to say, here's a high-level overview of who Laurie is, kind of what she needs, what her work style is. So she's going to be more reserved and formal in her communication. So if you're outgoing, don't be offended if she's not really chatty. She needs some time to trust you, right? She's going to follow the rules. She has a thoughtful approach when communicating, so she's really going to be sincere and thoughtful in what she says to you. She's going to need all the details. So one of these are in there for everybody. When you do a search in the system, it will actually pull up exactly who they are. So if you go into their details page, it will tell you what your reference profile is. And then coming into, speaking of the details page, so on the person's detail page now, so when you search for a person and click on their name and it brings up all their information, we have what's called the pattern insight. And this is just such an amazing overview tool. You don't have to read the whole behavioral report. Additionally, it's actually going to give you some of what I call the double-edged sword. So the behavioral reports are written in a very positive, uplifting, makes everybody, because all patterns are great, it makes everybody's pattern sound great. The pattern insights, we start to get into a little bit of maybe the holdbacks or the challenges, right? It also breaks down all 6 factor combinations for you. So if you've kind of forgotten how to figure out what, if I'm a D over B or a B over D, here it is, right here. So then you can go and do a little bit more research, or, right, D over B means it's formal, they're serious, disciplined, and sincere. So really helpful when you just need kind of a snapshot reminder in the continuing education after you go through any kind of training with us. So, boom. Quick overview of all of these fun new tools. So what we went through is the improved interview guide, the relationship guide, the management strategy guide, the teamwork styles, the reference profiles, and the pattern insights. We also took a quick look at how the pattern comparison works and stack ranking candidates. So all of that is found in data. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now for any questions.